What's good, everybody? What's going on, man? It's Stephen Qualls II, aka Mr. Qualified. It's your boy, and we're back with the finale of our top 5 series, and we are doing centers. Of course, before we get into all the basketball talk, again, we have a guest. This time, another very, very special guest. It's a Heat fan, so I can't say too much. I gotta let it ride until the season come back in. But go ahead, let the people know who you are, man, what knowledge you bring into the table, and yeah, we'll just hop right into it.
What's good, Charles? Zach. Like Steve said, huge Miami Heat fan since I first started watching basketball. My first basketball memory is the Heat winning the NBA championship in 2006. Been riding with the squad ever since, the highs, the lows. Not too many lows. We're pretty much always in the playoffs. Great being a Heat fan, but honestly, just real respect for the game. I try to be as unbiased as possible. But I'm just excited to be here and talk about the centers today, man, for sure.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, we'll get right into it. We've been talking about where people gonna fall on this list. I think we all probably have about the same 5 names. Just gonna be a matter of who goes where. But yeah, we'll just start it off with one. Who is the best center? Who's the best center of all time?
He's a really smart guy, and he's I don't know. There's something that it's got a hook to his name too, but it's got to be Kareem, right? We're all thinking Kareem.
Yeah,
it has to be. It has to be. You're talking about one of the for most people, easily top 5, arguably top 3, for a good amount of people, top 2 players ever. So, he's definitely, in terms of centers, I feel like he's easily one. I'll briefly try to go through this very extensive resume of his. 6-time NBA champion, 2-time NBA Finals MVP, 6-time NBA MVP, 19-time All-Star, 10-time NBA first team, 5-time second team, 5-time defensive first team, 6-time defensive second team. Also was an NBA Rookie of the Year. He's a 2-time scoring champion, a 1-time rebounding leader, a 4-time blocks leader. He's made 3 all-anniversary teams, and he has his number retired by 2 different franchises. Yeah, and that's just professional.
Oof. Yeah, you can't really argue against Kareem, bro. 38,000 points, no 3-point shots, like longevity. Like before LeBron, we had Kareem. He had a little bit of finesse to his game, but I don't think people understand just the dominance he also had. Like to be that good for that long, like they changed a lot of basketball rules because of Kareem.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm not sure if there's really much to add. He's from a basketball standpoint, he is your when you think of centers who have dominated, centers who have kind of defined what it means to be one, he's the first one that's going to come to mind. So yeah, undoubtedly, unprecedentedly number 1. Now this is where it gets tricky. So who's number 2?
I think for me it's Shaq. Like I think just overall dominance. For me it's Shaq. I know it's arguments for King, but Shaquille O'Neal, just overall dominance. And when he was at his absolute best, literally unstoppable on the basketball floor. Ultimate gravity on the court. I don't think you can argue against that. Like his absolute peak.
Yeah, I completely agree. There are a lot of people I think that there's a lot of people that have Wilt at 2. There's a decent amount of people who I think, and again, I think historically, I think for whatever reason, and I think centers might be the only position that they do this with. But I feel like for centers, whenever they rank them, they always rank them based off of era, almost. Like you almost never see too many people eclipse Wilt in a lot of people's lists. Same with Bill Russell. But when we talking about Shaq, first and foremost, the most dominant player ever.
Talk about changing the rules. They turned the game into football. They're scoring 69 points a game.
Hack-a-Shaq being a thing is actually crazy.
Yeah.
Why? But I think his resume isn't anything, to laugh at either. A 4-time NBA champion that also includes a three-peat. 3-time NBA Finals MVP, which is also a three-peat. Has an MVP award, 15-time NBA All-Star, 8-time NBA first team, 2-time second team, 4-time third team, 3-time three-time all defensive team, but they're only second teams. That's really interesting. But 2-time NBA scoring champion as well. Has numbers retired by 2 different franchises as well. I think the interesting thing about Shaq is Shaq could have more rings. Let's start there. Shaq should have more rings. And if that was the case, I think we might be having a completely different conversation. Hell, if Shaq could shoot free throws, we might be having a completely different conversation.
If Shaq took the game like totally seriously, if he like put dedicated his body and like followed Kobe in those steps, it was like, yeah, I want you to be the greatest. Like we're talking about, he's one of one, like one of one, like a big bodied Giannis, like, because I mean, Giannis put up the most points in the paint since Shaq, and he was doing it with a wiry frame. Imagine Shaq really dedicating himself to really clearing these dudes like he was too. Like he truly was a different breed.
Yeah, no, I agree. And my thing about Shaq is like, everyone, of course, just thinks about him as an intimidating presence on defense. But for him to only have, what did you say, 3 all defensive selections, that kind of shows you just like the effort aspect. Like, dude, you're the most physically imposing basketball player with athleticism ever. And only got 3 defensive selections. It's a little low.
Yeah, it's very low. Like, I feel like he should have at least had 1 like DPOY too. I mean, and just from rim protecting alone, like, we're not talking about you being this versatile defender that can switch out and guard the perimeter. But in terms of like, I haven't even looked at his block numbers or anything like that, but something to go off of, like not being a block leader. You know what I'm saying? I'm not sure where he is on the block list and stuff like that. But seeing as defense wasn't always talked about as part of his intimidation, I wouldn't say it's a knock. I just think it more so goes to speak to kind of to your point, Gail, that if he tried, more so in that LA period, what's funny is his time with the Magic almost feels cut short, because I'm thinking about the time that he was there. If him and Penny work out, or if he stays and Grant doesn't get injured,
man,
you know what I'm saying? Like, we're talking about this could look completely different, in regards to how things go. Even him getting to LA was still kind of, that didn't become a thing until Kobe became Kobe, so it was just like, when you look at his career, it's like he definitely had his moment, his time, and for what he did, we all feel like he's number 2. But man, if a few things shake out a little bit differently, we again could be a completely different conversation, where I feel like he could easily have a stronger argument, 4-1, if a few things pan out a bit differently career wise. But yeah, him being that 2, I completely agree. Which, hey, which brings us to 3. So who's 3?
Once again, we'll lead with the guest.
For me, I personally, Hakeem Olajuwon, man, like the offensive skill, the shot blocking, the defensive presence. Like, I don't really know how you could argue anybody else above him. To me, like, as far as centers or offensive skill, like scoring wise, he's one of the most elite ever.
Qualls, I want to see who you had here. Did you have Hakeem too?
I did. I did move him to
3. We are 3 for 3.
Okay.
All right, I need. Okay, start us off then, Qualls. Like, for you, why does Hakeem end up at 3 for you?
Hakeem is probably the most.
This is the AD versus Giannis comparison. I feel it coming up between Shaq and Hakeem.
Not even that, because Shaq's presence was just different. Hakeem puts me more in the mindset of Jabbar from a skill set kind of finesse standpoint.
Yeah,
but Hakeem's just different. Like, I didn't see a big move like that, like when he was playing. And he people can say what they want to say about it. He's the only other player in the 90s to grab a ring for real in the midst of the Jordan era of the NBA.
In between the midst.
In between, in between the stints, you know what I'm saying? Say what you want to say, whatever. He got them back to back. It happened. But I think Hakeem begins to fall low on this list because people want to give respect to what Wilt and Bill Russell like gave to the game. But if we're talking about the skill of the player, and the only thing that I feel like Bill Russell would have an argument for is obviously the hardware, but it's kind of the same thing that came up with Havlicek, Miguel, where it's like you look at the hardware, it's like, okay, like the number is high, but the time that you got them,
it's probability at that point. It's probability.
You know,
and how many teams really had teams that were well constructed at that time period?
You know what I'm saying?
Where did they have cameras back in that time? It was on the East and West Coast. Like it just ended up being that way, you know?
Yeah. So Hakeem is 3 for me because I think he may not have the accolades of the others, and even that is, I think, apples and oranges to a degree. But from a skill standpoint, from an impact on the game standpoint, I think he's the third best. And you also talking about somebody that how many people will we be having different conversations about if not for the Jordan era being the Jordan era? And I feel like Hakeem falls into that category where just take Jordan out the picture for the sake of taking him out the picture. He's going to be one of the prominent players of the 90s, and probably he might sneak away with another ring. Give or take, who knows? You know what I'm saying? So that's why he's 3 for me.
And I think it's crazy that these are like the top 3 because when you think about it, they were like the best centers of their generation. Just they went from Kareem to Hakeem and straight from Hakeem to Shaq. Because I mean, honestly, like one thing about Hakeem's like, the overall dominance wasn't necessarily like on the same level as Shaq, but they did play in the finals. Mind you, Shaq was early in his career, but Hakeem did Shaq bad in the finals on the biggest stage. And I feel like, that is something to take into consideration. Like he played against Shaq, he played against Kareem, and he was the gap between them as like, the best in the league for an extended period of time too.
Yeah,
that's where we're putting it.
Gail, anything to add?
I think just in terms of like changing the look of center, or just like, the focus of what it looked like to be a center. Like you needed to have that up and under. You needed to have that dream shake added to your game. He still coaches half these dudes, even if Gilbert Arenas says like, the move hasn't worked since the 90s or whatever. He's still making, a mil per session.
But the move does work.
I'm in the gym still doing that. Like if they don't know, then I'm gonna hit them with it. So, it's like we can say it's dated or whatnot, but he changed what it looked like to be a center and to be a nimble and crafty one at that. Like Embiid would not have his career if it weren't for, some of the bag that Hakeem brought to the game, So
absolutely.
I think he deserved 3 for me.
Yeah. And even just quickly looking at the resume too, 2-time NBA champion, 2-time NBA finals MVP, has the NBA MVP. Damn, that was a crazy year for him. 12-time NBA All-Star, 6-time All-NBA first team, 3 second teams, 3 third team, 2-time defensive player of the year. Those are also back-to-back years. Oh shit. He won the DPOY, the MVP, and the finals MVP in the same year, along with getting a ring. That's a crazy run.
Yeah.
5-time all defensive first team, 4-time all defensive second team, 2-time NBA rebounding leader, 3-time blocks leader. So you talking about having the hardware impact on both sides of the floor and everything we've discussed. I feel like he, again, by like being the best center of their era, I feel like each of them added something new. Like when you talk about Kareem, Shaq, and Hakeem, each of them added something new that I feel like kind of got taken and then added upon by the next person. Like Hakeem, obviously, I think took things from Kareem, and then he was his own person, obviously. And then Shaq, of course, being a Laker, but then looking at both of them, and he's just dominant in a way that neither of them could be, but he still has the other, like, inspirations, if you will, from their game. So yeah, Akeem at 3 was. I moved him up because I hate that Akeem kind of gets that flack and gets pushed down, and it's almost solely because we're trying to give respect to the other players. But I just feel like if we're looking at the game as a whole, like I feel like it was maybe for a lot of people, like in the 2000s, it hadn't been enough time yet to really understand, Akeem's impact. But I feel like now for us being in, 2020 and beyond, Akeem's career is 20 years ago for us. So when we looking at the fact that ain't nobody else came through like Akeem, except for Embiid is the closest like player comp to him. But we haven't seen anything like that. So I think it's safe to say that he's one of those players like that we're not gonna get again, or that you'll see the imprint of his game in players that we're looking at as being like one of one or like generational in a sense, like an Embiid. So yeah, he's 3. So with that, who ended up being 4 for y'all?
I know we just kind of talked about, the whole respect and paying homage. And I was, trying to think, okay, like of course, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain played, when the league was smaller, it was a different NBA and stuff back then. But then I just tried to consider like just overall talent, impact and stuff like that. And I started looking, I did end up looking at the numbers still too. And I couldn't argue against, for me, Wilt being number 4. Like man's had a season where he averaged 50 points, 25 rebounds, playing 48 minutes a game. Like you can't make that up, bro. You
like 100 points in a game. Like some of the mythology of Wilt at that, it's just like talking about guys that have, ushered in like this new NBA of just like, this man was a freak. Like with seeing him on the track, seeing him just like move. Yeah, I think he is a deserving 4 on this. Like, granted, even if the league was what it was at that time, he was still dominant. Putting up 50, like some of those stat sheets. I'm just like, my man had to have been drunk on the stat sheet, just putting up some bull. But there were witnesses that I just want to see tape. I just want to see tape of these games. They got Bob Cousy doing 1 million dribbles a minute in a circle. Where's the Wilt tape? Like, come on, drop it. Somebody's got it.
Somebody.
So I wouldn't say that I disagree, but I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
How much does it factor in that for the majority of Wilt's career, was also dominated by Bill Russell?
You got it.
What teams were they on?
So I'm talking about when, of course, Bill was on the Celtics, and I would say that this is when Wilt was on Philly
and Golden State.
Yeah, that era. So that's what, 59 to 68. So basically the 60s.
What were the other teams that were getting rings at those times? It was Boston and who? It had to have been LA.
Yeah, I think it was LA. I'm pretty sure.
If he didn't play in LA in the 60s,
honestly, it was just Boston. When you think about it, it was just Boston.
If he has 11, he has 11 rings. Yeah, who did win at that time? I can't blame him. If Boston has 11 rings, and we could name countless Hall of Famers on those Celtics teams, and how many can we name off those Philly teams? Truly, like, all right, can you name a single player off of that Philly team?
Not off the dome. Not off the dome at all.
I couldn't tell you. Like, I don't blame him. Boston probably has, that's probably when they had all of those names that we've listed that are just, etched in the sands of time for, being blessed and fortunate. It just seems like, what's the word? They have, this gets deeper. This gets deeply rooted. Before it turns historical, before it turns into a lesson on, like, what was built off our people has turned into, all of these things. They inherited so much in Boston. Like, Bill Russell inherited so much history and so much. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah. So much richness and culture that afforded him to get those 11 rings and be the pinnacle of that team. When at the same time, other teams that weren't given the at least like material wealth to achieve that. But how dare we say that they couldn't do it? Just like they had all of the odds stacked against them. I don't blame Wilt for not getting one when Boston got 11. Like, listen, what about the rest of the league that could have done something? Like, it's not his fault. He's putting up 50 and 48 minutes.
So the only reason that comes up is or I feel like it comes up, and it's a somewhat valid argument, or at least something worth bringing up, is because they play the same position. Obviously, they are competitors in that sense of like they're the two biggest stars, best players, whatever the case may be. But something crazy is I just looked it up. I ain't never seen something where I'm looking at a player career highlights and awards, and it say they 11-time NBA champion, and one of the stretches is for 7 years. Wow. From 1959 to 1966. Like, they got 11-time NBA champion. It's a 1957, 1959 through 1966. And then it got 1968 and 1969.
Who won the one? Who won the one? Was it LA?
Probably.
It had to
go back and look. But yeah, no, I agree for that reason. Because even looking at Wilt's numbers, the man's career averages is 30 points a game, 23 rebounds a game, 4.5 assists. That's just
we can say he wasn't trying. It wasn't for lack of effort.
It's just completely.
He tried very hard.
I mean, but also Will is an 11-time NBA rebounding champion, 7-time NBA scoring champion, 2-time all defensive first team, 7 all NBA first team, 3-time all NBA second team, 4-time most valuable player as well with the finals MVP, and he's a 2-time NBA champion. So with everything that we've said,
he got two.
Bill, he got two. 67,
right.
67 and 72. So he got one in between Bill. Then he got one in the 70s, in the early 70s. So
but yeah, for sure he's 4. He got one. He wasn't on LA for either of those two. He might be 3. Hell, those are the hardest rings ever gotten.
That wasn't Boston. You actually might be right. You might be right. And that's crazy. The thing. Because even when you like sit there and think about Wilt like going against a team against like 10 Hall of Famers, like you're not catching a break at any point in the game. It's 10 Hall of Famers on one squad. That's like Brian in 2018 finals. Like you should like, bro, I appreciate the effort, but we know it's about to happen tonight. But literally, I appreciate the effort.
Wait, so would y'all move Wilt up then? Would y'all really move Wilt up to 3?
That's crazy. Because all I know is that it was Boston, LA. They got 30-some between the two of them.
Yeah. That's more, at least about 33. If I'm not, I forget what the count is. Are they both at 17? Or is one at 18? I can't remember.
I think they're knotted up again. I'm pretty sure.
They're tied.
Okay.
Because I remember that there was a lot of Celtics lore this season. We're gonna break the tie. It's the year, and no. Damn. Okay. I think out of respect for consistency, there's no reneging here. That stays with Hakeem at 3 and Wilt stays at 4.
I'm still not mad at it because I still feel like as dominant as Wilt was, and granted his era didn't allow for him to maybe have more accomplishments. I still would say that I still think that Hakeem was more revolutionary to the game than Wilt was. Like Wilt has done things that won't be done again, but I don't think that we are seeing Wilt Wilt is not inspiring players of today still, where I feel like for a big man, Hakeem, that type of finesse as a big, that is the NBA game now. So I think we'll see more of that. And because of that, while I agree with not reneging, that's why I would personally keep Hakeem at 3 as well. But Wilt at 4 is very solid. I don't disagree with that. I don't have any problems with that. Does that mean Bill is 5? I'm gonna assume it's safe to say that Bill is 5 then.
Out of respect, like what we were saying beforehand. No, man, can't use that phrase.
Who else would, even if not using respect, what other argument could you really make for another player?
It's like 5A, 5B, 5C between Moses Malone and like the Admiral, like being like, for me at least, a 6 and 7 there. But I think Bill, 11 rings.
Yeah.
At some point, we have to put put respect on those 11 rings, even if it, astroturfed heavily. It's still like 3.5 rings. It still averages out like by time standard. That's like 3.5 rings. That's still hard.
Y'all want to realize how old this man is that we talking about? He is a member of all 4 anniversary teams. The 25th anniversary team, the 35th anniversary team.
Hell, if they had a first anniversary team, ta-da! We see Bill on there.
Nah, but for real. And he's also the only player to have his number retired by all NBA teams. So taking all those things into account, especially when you talk about impact,
it's the number 5, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. It's the number 6. Miguel.
Damn, I was 1 off. 1 numbers are my best.
So I agree with that list. And I figured like those were the 5 names just because I feel like those are the 5 best centers ever. I do not know if I don't think there's anybody close to really cracking 6, to be completely honest. Now I will say this. I don't know how much longer he gonna play. I don't know how much more hardware he plans on getting. However,
he could do it because he's special. He's a different type of he's a fuse. He's like he's got the footwork of Akeem and he's got the playmaking of like Arvydas Sabonis.
I'm crying.
Yeah, like
if Yo keep building on that resume, and he's not. I mean, he's still early in his career, relatively.
Very much so.
He's really just entering his prime. So, granted, as tight as the West is, and as tough as it'll always be to get a chip, and it's not like he needs to go get 5 or 6 rings to crack this list. To be honest.
He needs like 2 more and an MVP.
If he gets 2 more rings and snags another MVP along the way, or just continues to build on other accolades, I mean, we're also talking about somebody that might be close to averaging a triple-double for his career, depending on how long he stays upon this track. So it's just like he is probably the closest. I would love to put Embiid in this conversation, but he got to get a ring. Yeah. Hey man, we just talking shop at this point. Don't mind us. We just talking shop for real. But again, this is the finale of our top 5 series. If y'all haven't went back and checked all the other positions, please go do that, man. I feel like it's been a lot of good conversations. I feel like a lot of our lists have been relatively accurate for the most part. I won't say there's been too many disagreements with it. But man, I hope y'all ready for what's next, because we doing top 10 in the league currently, and that is gonna have to be in order. And then we doing that all-time list, and that is gonna have to be in order. Top 10 players all time. So it's about to get real.
Yeah.
I don't think you can go all vibes for them. I think you're gonna have to come. You're gonna have to come with some research.
It's top 10 in the game right now, and then top what say it one more time?
Top 10 all time after that.
I still think that can be done. That can
vibes?
I'm 5 for 5 for 5 for 5 for 5 so far.
You're
like I went in and I was like, one of these is gonna be wrong, and then each time I'm like, wow, people are smart when we talk to them. I'm used to talking to kids all day because man, sometimes like I said, there was a Brody versus Chris Paul talk about who's the top 5 point guard. I was about to lose my mind. I'm still reeling from it. I'm not gonna lie. It hurts. It hurts to hear the GOAT be talked about so disrespectfully.
Zach, he hasn't let this go one bit.
No, it's been 3 weeks. I'm telling you, those weren't supposed to be Miguel Mondays. Those clips that dropped. I'm at school and I'm over here like, I'm sorry, wait 1 second. I have to get my shit out. Like they drove me crazy, bro. Like I digress. It'll be up soon.
You taking Russ over Chris Paul all time?
Probably not. I'm probably not. I think
it's one of those where it's like it's like, I could see a thought to it, but like if we're talking like who I asked, like, who would you want to run your offense? And they're saying Russell Westbrook. I'm like, y'all just don't know ball. I'm like it's just a turnover ratio. Like they're just talking to talk at some point. I'm like, that's why I gotta show up. I got 40 minutes, so I got open gym. This is where I take it out on them. So it's like they earned it. Your talk has earned this. Now I'm gonna show you what point guard play looks like.
Hey, I'm crying. Last thing on this, just because it's brought up. I look at the career that Russell Westbrook has had, and I'm not necessarily comparing the players by skill. If D Rose doesn't get injured, I wonder if we're having the same conversations about Russell Westbrook that we are. That's not to say that he wouldn't go on, right, to do what he's done in regards to, that's not to say he won't get his MVP. That's not to say he doesn't have the triple-double seasons. But I remember early on in their careers, like their first 2-3 years, it was, who are you taking, Rose or Westbrook? And a lot of people were leaning toward Rose because you talk about two athletic, like crazy athletic point guards that are attackers more than they are shooters. And I think Rose's game was a bit more polished and easy to fit around. And Rose had more IQ, especially early on in their careers. So it's kind of tough, but I think the trajectory that Rose's career took kind of paved the way for Westbrook to have this lane of his own in terms of athletic point guard that just has this motor that never stops. And I don't think that Rose necessarily had the motor that Westbrook had per se. I don't think anybody does, but I do think that's an interesting thing to look at in regards to how Westbrook didn't have competition in that sense, in regards to another player that was similar skill set on his level. You could really say, like, are you really out doing this player, or is it just nobody that really does what you do, type of deal? No discredit to Westbrook by
that's a crazy what if though, because you can't tell me if D Rose doesn't get hurt, he's not getting one chip. You can't tell me that.
That Chicago team is getting a chip.
At one point in time.
Them early 2010 years, they figuring it out.
Yeah.
So you gotta think he had already got an MVP by that point. He had already shown like that he was going to be a problem in the playoffs.
So with Bron.
And then Thibodeau had to go and run.
I still think back to that series, man. Just
why are you playing him? You're up 20
and just never. Like just never the same. He was just never really the same after that. So it's tough, but
they're just letting anybody coach these days, man. I swear. Man,
not too much on Tibbs, man. Tibbs he ain't terrible. Hey, there's a lot left to be desired for sure.
Olympic level coach, but player management
terrible.
Ooh, to be desired. Let's just say that.
Again, we just talking shop. Don't listen to us. Just catch these on the extra episodes on YouTube. But that's really it. We getting off the pod for sure.
Oh man,
we'll catch y'all next week.
Hey, if I had two of these bottles, I'd be clanking them together.